Thank you very much. I will do without power presentation. I hope the power of my word will do something for your subject matter. Now, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for including me, since I'm in many ways an outsider to the issue here, but maybe I could and might something contribute to how do we deal with, as international community, with the facts of destruction post-conflict. Actually, Helen Walasek, by the way, this book is just out from her, and a very solid and excellent foundation to discuss the Bosnia case, which I will now do. Actually, why did the international community react in such a way as it did in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where, while during the war, it was basically an onlooker? There was not much activity apart from registering the destruction, but the UN forces, for example, never took the task upon them to defend or to protect the cultural sites in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, my task here is to talk about the response. What has the international community actually done? And I would like to share with you some of my own very practical experience, having been the so-called High Representative of the international community for Bosnia and Herzegovina around the turn of the century, 1999 to 2002, actually the crucial years after the war in the implementation of the Dayton Peace Accords. As some of you might recall, the United States-led humanitarian intervention stopped the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and it was again the United States who introduced and who led the peace effort, which then produced the Dayton Peace Accord. By the way, one of the most ambitious peace treaties around, and because the goal was and still is nothing less than state building. Now, Dayton is remarkable for several reasons, for geopolitically speaking. Clearly, this was the US unipolar moment where the United States could indeed dictate what should happen. It was also this kind of feeling of a positive feeling, I would say, of this kind of liberal imperialism, a can-do mentality when stopping in particular wars and asymmetric conflicts. Now, the Dayton Peace Accord, with the consent of the government of Bosnia-Herzegovina and the neighboring countries, Croatia and Yugoslavia, then small Yugoslavia, Milosevic's Yugoslavia, turned Bosnia-Herzegovina into sort of a semi-international protectorate, which was based on two pillars, a military and a civilian part. Of course, the military was extremely important at the beginning, when there was still lots of tensions around and nobody was really sure whether this would not fall back into yet another military conflict. Now, the civilian part of the peace implementation effort, which I was in charge of, was the so-called Office of the High Representative. This is an ad hoc international organization that was specifically designed for the implementation of the Dayton Accords. And it is indeed part of the Dayton Accords as one of the annexes. Now, the so-called High Representative there, the top civil administrator, is the final authority in theater, as the Accords put out, with two very important features. The High Representative as a person, this is directly vested into his position to impose legislation and to dismiss by decree public figures, which unfortunately I had to do more than 100 times. Now, the stated goal of the Dayton Accord was to reverse the impact of ethnic cleansing, to preserve the unity of the state, and to bring back, in particular, the more than 2 million refugees and IDPs internally displaced persons. Of course, the priorities at the beginning were far more directed towards the humanitarian issues. This was really a fight about the sheer survivor, and also to create a safe and secure environment, both for the population as well as for the international community which went there. At the beginning was about around 60,000 military and several hundred, then several thousand civilians working there, both diplomats, governments, international officials, as well as NGOs. Now, as I've already mentioned, the centerpiece of the Dayton Accord really is to bring back the expelled population. As I said, the population of altogether barely 4 million, and more than 50% were expelled. And the issue, of course, was how do we actually counter the ethnic cleansing, the terrible word for something, and what actually spells success. And success in bringing back refugees and IDPs was really, can they go back into territories, into areas where they are part of the minority of either Serbs, Croats, or Bosniaks. Now, in 2000, and this is quite interesting, I was there, as I said, between 1999 and 2002, there was a breakthrough in minority returns. Even Human Rights Watch, which is usually not very friendly with international organizations, was speaking of a breakthrough and in very positive terms about the work that we are doing there. And it was a coincidence that also in the year 2000, actually the UNESCO-led efforts to deal with the cultural devastation there came to an end. It was handed over to the local government. Now, one thing is important to mention, and this is that actually this is the first peace treaty, and there are not many others. I used to negotiate the Rambouillet agreement for Bosnia, for Kosovo, and there the cultural aspect is mentioned, but not that as prominently as in the case of Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the Annex 8 actually created a commission to preserve national monuments. Annex 8 was in the first couple of years of a rather limited success under UNESCO guidance. There was a list of monuments that was created, but there was no formal process to speak of how to go about. But then the year 2000, when more and more refugees found their way back into their original villages and smaller towns usually, there started a sort of I would say, interplay between the two Dayton provisions. This is Annex 7, refugee return, on the one hand, and Annex 8, as the Commission to Preserve National Monuments on the other hand. And clearly it was, and that was pointed out in Helen's presentation already, it was mostly Muslim sacred buildings, mosques that were destroyed, and this in a very systematic way, because the idea on the Serb side was really to create what they referred to as a Greater Serbia project. Now, we on the other hand, the international community, we had to consider in order to make the returns sustainable, that rehabilitation, the reconstruction was very important. This is the other side. It was used to reverse the ethnic cleansing, so to speak, the physical cleansing, if you may. In order to make it sustainable, which of course includes to sort of recreate a sense of belonging, also safety, security is very much attached to this. In short, to stabilize those communities there who were shaken so thoroughly. And of course, it was also thought to be some sort of eventual reconciliation and truth-finding exercise, which will have to come underway eventually. There, we also need to clearly deal with this systematic destruction of cultural monuments. Now, the question, of course, is also that the interesting thing that happened is that with the increasing returns and more efforts, which were frustrated in the first couple of years to rebuild this mosque, this led to several violent clashes and incidents, particularly in Serb-dominated areas, like on 2 occasions in Banja Luka, the capital of the Serb-dominated entity Republika Srpska, where a cornerstone-laying ceremony was ambushed by extremists and hooligans, and also another one in another Serb-dominated town of Trebinje, not far away from Dubrovnik, if you know where Dubrovnik is, after about 1 hour's drive, but inside of Bosnia and Herzegovina, not in Croatia, where Dubrovnik is. Now, this made it necessary to thoroughly reconsider, actually, how to move forward in the implementation of this Annex 8 and the Commission in Britain. My office decided on taking a wholly new approach, which was basically based, or let's say, on two elements, a two-track approach, if you may. First and foremost, to harmonize legislation in the country and the different layers of governance that existed there, created by the Dayton Accord, far too over-convoluted and far too complex, but that's just a fact. This legislation basically served to hinder and to obstruct any meaningful action there, not just in the cultural field, of course, in many other fields as well. And secondly, to reconstitute this commission for the cultural monuments. At the time, and when in preparing for this small and short lecture, I went over the papers from that time, and there I reread a letter which I wrote to the UNESCO Director General at the time, where I complained about the Byzantine jungle of non-uniform laws concerning construction permit application. It's kind of hyperbolic, the language, but it also expresses the frustration that we were confronted with. Now, what followed was a drawn-out negotiation process. Working groups were set in drafting sessions took place, and I had basically to mediate between local actors, international community, the security aspect, for example. The stabilization force there, that NATO-led, was not very happy about those violent incidents because they were in charge of safe and secure environments. Now, thanks to the powers invested in me, and this needs to be underlined here as High Representative, I eventually amended the laws and I imposed in the Republika Srpska the whole legislation, because the National Assembly there simply would not have done its job. Now, at the same time, and let me just mention those a few examples which took place simultaneously, and that was my decision on the location of the cemetery for the Srebrenica victims, as well as the Missing Persons Initiative, DNA-based identification process that took place. And we also very much supported the ICTY, the Yugoslavia Tribunal, to include cultural genocide in it. And on the other hand, there were also business activities where one was trying to, so to speak, disrupt these cultural reconstructions. Of course, this all was intended to foster normalization and to support the community building efforts. Now, 15 years on, Bosnia-Herzegovina is still a very much divided society. I'm afraid that it's on a downward spiral, but there are also some positive things. First of all, the commission, the Annex 8 Commission, is arguably the only success story when it comes to the state-level institutions in Bosnia-Herzegovina. We know that all the so-called national museums and galleries are closed. There is no money for this, but above all, there is no common narrative for a state of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Maybe we'll speak later on about the lessons, because there are some that could be drawn from Bosnia-Herzegovina. Thank you so much.